Alright, look, in case you don't know, I'm from the streets, and not just kind of the streets. I was born and raised in a public housing system, the projects, the hood, the ghetto, whatever you want to call it, where the houses look the same, and the crackheads are old, and the same people have been living there, a bunch of single moms and gang violence and shit like that. I grew up there for the first 18 years of my life. And then I went on to start boxing. I started boxing at the late age of 22 and had a great career as an amateur and professional. I bring these two things up in this way to say that I have seen a lot of violence, unsanctioned on the street and sanctioned in the ring. So it gives me a bit of a unique perspective on the whole topic of physical violence. And people come to me because of my unique background in both street fights and fights in the ring, because I fought a lot, especially before I was 14, and I ended up going to a different high school across town. But people always ask me, hey, what's the similarities? What are the differences? What's the best discipline to learn if I want to be effective in the street? And my response always is something like this. First of all, the difference between a boxing match and a street fight is that in a boxing match there are rules. There's a code of conduct and certain expectations. In fact, guys in a boxing match aren't even really trying to hurt each other per se. It just so happens that the rules of boxing are such that that's how victory is attained. Now in a street fight, the guys are trying to kill each other. There's no rules, there's no respect, there's often malice, you know. And with that said, I say there's no reason to ever be in a street fight. If you ever find yourself facing the prospect of a street fight, I tell you to do certain things instead. And this video is going to cover my whole system for avoiding a street fight and what to do if you can. Alright, let's deal with the one question right off jump that a lot of people come to me about. What's the best self-defense or martial arts style to learn to deal with a street encounter? Now, if you live in the United States, there's a pretty good chance someone's going to have a gun. So it doesn't matter whether you decide to do boxing, kickboxing, Krav Maga, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or any of the other systems out there that claim to give you an advantage in a street encounter. You're not bulletproof and you're not stab proof. Here's my advice to you. The best investment is in a gun, some good shoes to run, a job that's going to give you enough money to live in some place where it's less likely that this shit's going to happen to you, and some common sense so you can stay away from places where things like this are going to be likely to happen to you. If you invest in all four of those, that's way better than learning how to throw hands, thinking you're ever going to get a chance to throw hands in the street. The days of getting a fair fight are over. Guys are pulling up, shooting on guys. Guys are waiting until the homies come around and jumping them. Guys are picking up bricks off the side of the road and going upside your head. Look, it ain't just the firearms, but people don't regard life anymore. They think everything's a game and nobody wants to take an L, so they're going to do whatever they can to hurt you, and it's not going to be within the rules of the Marquis of Queensberry or some type of sanctioned bout. Get yourself a firearm, get yourself a good pair of running shoes, live in a safe neighborhood, and think about the places you go to. That's way better than any self-defense that you could ever invest in. Stay away from the spots where the assholes are at. You know the spots I'm talking about. The spots where trouble seems to find you even if you're not looking for it. The type of spots where there's a lot of alcohol and even more ego. For example, nightclubs, bars, after hours spots, any place in the hood where there's like a trap or a corner or a block. There's no reason to be in these places unless you make a living being there. And if you do make a living being there, I strongly suggest you find another way to get paid, because they're probably not paying you enough to put your life on the line because some dude doesn't want to leave and somebody stepped on his sneakers. Look, don't be an asshole yourself now. It's amazing how many bad situations can be made better by simply having some manners and treating people with respect. Somebody might be having a bad day, and at that point in time, they just don't give a damn about going to jail. at the very least, they're not thinking about it and they're more interested in taking out their frustration on the person who caused it, which is going to be you if you treat somebody with disrespect or you put somebody in a bad mood because you want to act all tough and you want to act all crazy trying to show off for somebody. Look, good manners never have made a situation worse. All you got to do to avoid a lot of situations, even if you were the one being wronged, is just say, my bad, and back off. Now, I'm not telling you to be weak. I'm not telling you to be subservient. I'm not telling you to be a doormat. What I'm telling you is to make it clear to this individual who may be interested in starting a physical altercation with you, making it clear to this individual that you, one, aren't about that life, but two, you are acknowledging that something went wrong, so you're not trying to weasel out of it. Few things make people madder than condescension or cowardice or passive aggression. And you might be from some place where that passive aggression, people play into the passive part, but you gonna keep it up, that type of attitude, you're gonna run into somebody that's gonna test you on the aggressive part. And people who are passive aggressive don't tend to be ready for the aggressive part of things. So much better to be sincere and genuine in everything, treat people with respect, and talk to everyone with the utmost manners that you can muster for that situation. Now, keeping with that theme of good manners and treating people with respect, if you do that and you still find yourself in a confrontation or potential confrontation, you have to learn to keep your ego in check. A lot of us guys, we want to get big when somebody gets big on us and show them that we're not the one to play with. Por favor, don't do that. Because sometimes that guy, like I said in the previous point, these guys, a lot of them, for whatever reason, whether it be the alcohol, whether it be they're trying to show off for somebody around, they're ready to be down for whatever. You never know where somebody is from or what they're going through, and you cannot judge on appearances. If you can just simply apologize, even if you were the one do an apology, back down, let them know it's all good. Even buy a guy a drink if it looks like it might be at that level. Do whatever you can to keep the situation from escalating to the physical. Because once it gets there, you have new problems. It's not just about whether you're going to get the best of this guy or not. One, we talked about this before already, he could kill you. Two, this is the other part that no one thinks about. You might accidentally kill him, or at the very least hurt him bad enough to where it now turns into a legal thing, and now you find yourself in a courtroom battle. Now, I'm not saying be a bitch. I'm not saying back down. And it is definitely better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. But the best way to avoid these kind of problems is to make sure that they don't start in the first place. And you can do that with good manners and respect. Now, the next thing I'm going to need y'all to do to avoid a physical confrontation, a fight in the street, I'm going to need you to look like you're going to be trouble. A lot of you guys, you can't help how tall you are, but you're looking like a wire. Go put some muscle on. Walk with your head up high. Look like you know where you're going. Don't make yourself an easy target. Stay out your phone when you're walking on the street, especially in an urban environment. You want guys to look at you and at least think twice. They should not look at you and go, that guy, he's going to be easy work. Like I said, you can't help it if you like 5'3". I'm sorry for you. That's unfortunate, but those are the extreme situations. But if you're a guy of a reasonable height or taller, look tough. Don't look like you're a fat ass who can't fight, or you're a skinny guy who can't do any damage, or you're not going to be able to run away because you don't know the area because you look lost, or you look like you can be easy to sneak up on because you're in your phone and not paying attention. No, look alert, look alive, look strong, walk with your head up, your chest out, and like you have a purpose where you're being. And that will deter a lot of people from trying to start shit with you. And if you can keep these things from happening, you don't have to solve them. That is the main idea of every tip I'm giving you, is that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And that's probably an understatement. It's probably more like a ton of cure, because it's these problems when you get into them. when you get into the legal side of it, when you get into the hell side of it, now you got stuff that is potentially irreversible. This, if you just make sure you go to the gym and make sure you walk around right, make sure you treat people with respect, that is not only going to make your life better in general, but specific to this problem, it's going to help you avoid it. Now, look, let's say you do all this. You're treating people with respect, you're staying out the hood, you're not walking around like you lost in La La Land, like you ain't never picked up a weight in your life and you can't put the burritos down, but you still end up in a fight. What should you do? Remember that investment? Those four things, one of them was a good pair of running shoes. It's time to make good use of those. It's time to take off like a bat out of hell and get out of there. Look, there's three situations where you can't run. And if it's not one of these three situations, get your ass out of there. One, you with your girl, because your girl's not going to be able to run as fast as you. All right? So you got to protect her. Two, you got your kids and your family with you. I shouldn't have to say this, but they're not going to be able to move as fast as you either. And there's many of them you got to stay and protect. Or if one of your boys is being hurt, you got to jump in and you got to deal with that and you got to stop that fight from happening. Other than that, get the hell out of there, man. Get out of there. You don't gain any points for staying and winning a fight. You gonna be the tough guy in your own mind. Either in a jail cell or dealing with stitches. Which is really the best case scenario, because when you're in the heat of the moment in a fight, there's not really a concept of self-restraint. That's a trained fighter thing. The average person is going to be swinging, throwing without regard, picking up things, slamming things, jamming things, and hoping to just survive, because that's what it is. It's a survival mode. And so if you're on the other end of that survival mode, you're going to end up hurt bad. And when you click into that survival mode, the old bro, when I just see red and everything starts dropping type level, then you're going to end up hurting the other guy too, in a pretty bad way. And there is nothing that is going to make that better. So just run, man. If you end up, if all of this works, just run. Or all of this doesn't work, just take off and get out of there. But if you do end up fighting, you couldn't get out of there, you were cornered, you were surrounded, you end up in that survival mode, this is probably the hardest piece of advice to follow, because it's one of those things where unless you're in that situation, you're not prepared for what's going to happen at all. There's no way to prepare for this. You're going to have to fight, you're going to have to stomp the guy out, and you're going to have to do what you can do to win that battle and keep yourself alive, but no more. Because if you do more, you risk incurring the wrath of the law, where they cannot, or you cannot prove that it was self-defense, that you responded with justifiable force. I know some guys that ended up doing 2 to 3 years or facing that charge because they weren't unable to demonstrate that they needed to stomp the guy extra on the floor or on the ground when he went down, or that punch that they threw, they needed to throw it that hard, So this is a tough one to listen to and a tough one to follow, which is why all the tips of prevention are necessary to adhere to. But if you find yourself in that situation, do what you got to do and no more. But at the same time, remember, like I said earlier, it's better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. I would much rather be sitting in front of a courtroom trying to figure out, assuming I did it and I was justified and right in my heart. Now, if you went overboard and you was kicking the dude while he was down and couldn't do anything and he was out. But if you know you did the right thing and you feel like you was doing the right thing and you was completely in the right and he was in the wrong, much better to be sitting up there trying to defend yourself in court than fighting for your life in a hospital bed. So you make the right decision based on that, what you know. All right, look, man, the reality is this. With today's firepower, wanton regard for life, and litigious culture, track lessons and negotiation skills are a much better investment than any self-defense that you could ever find. We're just in a different era and a different world with this type of stuff. And it's much better to avoid a fight than to try and figure out how to win it. Don't start no shit. Won't be no shit. Don't be an asshole and try to treat assholes with respect even though they don't deserve it. And you should be alright. The rest is up to you.